If Harvest Moon / Story of Season games are kind of like a baby, then Rune Factory games are kind of like that angsty teenager in a phase. If that makes sense to anybody. Now, I'm definitely more of a Harvest Moon / Story of Seasons type of girl, but I've definitely dabbled a toe or two into the Rune Factory games. There are a couple Rune Factory games out there, and I really want to talk about them because there is a new Rune Factory game coming out very soon, and I think we should kind of go through an overview about some of those old games to see if this new game is really up to par with some of the older games. Now, personally speaking, I've always been a cozier type of gamer, but Rune Factory games add that little extra element of fighting and dungeon hunts with monsters mixed with a little bit of farming and romance, which is why I think Rune Factory games are a perfect addition to some of those Harvest Moon / Story of Season cozy gamers who like a little bit of combat. As a person who loves playing RPG style games, even some JRPGs here and there, I really did like the Rune Factory series just because it added that element of fighting and farming. It's like you get best of both worlds. So today we're going to get into a whole overview about all of the games, my personal favorites, my personal non-favorites, and we'll lastly talk about Guardians of Azuma, which should be releasing later this year. By the way, if you didn't know, my name is Nina Gabriella, and I'm happy to have you here at the channel. Welcome back to all of those who have already been here. If you'd like to see more videos like this, I'd love it if you hit that like and subscribe button so I know that we can do more games like this, and I love it when you leave comments down below. It lets me know what video recommendations you want to see next. And for those of you who don't know, I just launched a Patreon and a Discord, so if you guys would like to get in on all of the action and all of the fun, it's linked down in the description below. But we're not enough with that. Let's talk about Rune Factory and the new game Guardians of Azuma. Are you excited? Over the last couple years, there have been a countless number of Rune Factory games. Now, just letting you know, we're only really talking about the mainline Rune Factory games. As much as I like to talk about the spin-off games, I actually haven't really played them myself, so I think I'm going to save that for another video where I can talk about a whole line of spin-off games related to our mainstream games. So we're really just talking about Rune Factory 1 through 5 before we talk about Guardians of Azuma. If you've never played a Rune Factory game before, this is definitely the video for you, as we're going to be touching on all the mainstream games, along with even touching on my predictions for Rune Factory 6. So let's get started with our first Rune Factory game. Find out the way in the thunder rain, begin to test. Starting with Rune Factory: A Fantasy Harvest Moon. This game came out in 2006 for the Nintendo DS, and it is where all of the Rune Factory games had started. Now, like many others, this was the first Rune Factory game I ever played, and the reason I picked it up is because it had Fantasy Harvest Moon in the title. By this time the game had come out, I was already obsessed with the Harvest Moon games, so when I saw something like Harvest Moon in the title, they knew what they were doing when they put that on there, because trust me, when I saw this game, I was like, if it's anything like Harvest Moon, then I want to know what it's about. One day I really want to do like a battle of the farming games, comparing the Rune Factory games to the Story of Seasons / Harvest Moon games. And trust me, I know there's gonna be some controversial opinions, and I know I'm biased, but I can say this first game really did it for me and is the reason why I still kept up with the Rune Factory games to this day. In this game, you play as Raguna, or the main protagonist. He's a classic anime boy with amnesia who stumbles into a little town and gets handed a farm. You meet a girl named Mist, and she immediately offers you a land to farm in, and that's really how the game begins. You don't really have too much explanation on what's going on or really the story, but you just kind of build your life. You get a farm, you get to know the villagers, and you learn about kind of the village that you're living in. It's kind of infested with monsters, there's caves, there's lots of dungeons where you can fight, and the more you progress in the game, you get to learn the game's actual main story, which kind of has to do with more of like the empire. There's like a lot of like runes you have to go through. It's been a long time since I've played this one, so I really had to write down some notes to try to remember all of this. But this game really did have a lot of charm. This was like one of the first farming sims to actually add combat in an RPG style way. This game really did change the game for farming games. You're not only having a cute, cozy farm, but you're also taming monsters that can help you on your farm, on top of doing some crafting. There's like some seasonal events. This game really does it all, and I think that's why it appeals to a lot of newer audiences that are getting into farming games because it adds something that the other farming games don't have, which is the fact you can battle. But on some of the more downsides of this game, it is a bit clunky. Now granted, this game is pretty old. I would say the pacing of it is a bit slow, it's a bit stiff when it comes to controls, but I will say for what it is, it has a lot of beloved nostalgia, weird quirks, charms. I will say if you've never played a Rune Factory game before, you will notice that the common theme of these games is that your character always has amnesia. For whatever reason, you find yourself getting amnesia, and they don't really expand on that really at all. Like, it's kind of like you have amnesia and you're kind of like, still gotta go about my life, so... And they don't really get into much detail about trying to figure out why you got amnesia, where you came from. Like, I don't know if this is really a detriment or just something that I don't know, I just have grown to just understand, but I really wish they would give us more information about the reasons why your character always has amnesia, or like make the game more of a mystery to try to figure out why. But nope, instead you're like, let's just be a farmer and fight monsters. And that's most of the Rune Factory games. Now, I won't spoil too much of the main story of this game, but I will say there is a lot of cool elements of this game that makes it different than your traditional Story of Seasons / Harvest Moon game. Unlike some of the Story of Seasons / Harvest Moon games, this game has a lot more of an in-depth storyline. It's something you actually are trying to progressively achieve, as opposed to some of those older, maybe, Harvest Moon DS Cute, for instance. The storyline isn't as fleshed out, so I will say this was really something I enjoyed about the Rune Factory series. Me personally, I don't think this would be the first Rune Factory game I would recommend to someone who's never played before, but for nostalgic purposes, I'd say I'd check it out. But this next game's a different story. I can't believe I missed this game as a kid, oh my gosh. This game right here is Rune Factory 2: A Fantasy Harvest Moon. This game came out in 2008 for the Nintendo DS. Now, out of the mainline Rune Factory series, this is the only game I hadn't had played when I was a bit younger, or had played prior to making this video. So I feel like I can't really say too much about this game, but I will say this is one of those games that I wish I had more time to play, and I might come back to do a full review of, because this game is more than what it seems, and I really want to talk about it. I don't know why in my mind, I just figured there really wasn't a Rune Factory 2. I had played Rune Factory 1 when I was a lot younger, then I played Rune Factory 3 when I was a lot older, so 2 just never really occurred to me. But let's talk about the story a little bit. In this game, you play as the main protagonist, who winds up in a town called Alvarna. In this game, you are farming, you're fighting monsters, and you're romancing one of the several bachelorettes. But halfway through the game, it actually shifts. In this game, the protagonist actually disappears, and you continue the game as your child. Yeah, I know, the game actually spans 2 generations. Like I said, I wish I would have played this game when I was younger, because I had no idea this was even a thing. For all the Rune Factory stands are probably looking at me like I'm crazy, like this game was top tier or something. And to be honest, I really feel like this is a game, now if I had more time and could have finished it before this video, I would generally have loved. See, the cool thing about this game is so it kind of splits up into 2 parts. In the first part of the game, you're focusing on relationship building, exploring dungeons, unlocking more of the story. But in the second half of the game, when you're playing as your child, he attends schools and continues his adventure for the first time. While I already looked it up and spoiled it for myself so I understand like kind of what goes on, but it is so cool. Like, I'm telling you, this level of storytelling is something we need to see more in JRPG storylines. And let me tell you, this is one of those things that I kind of wish I could see in a traditional Harvest Moon / Story of Seasons game. Like, in some games you have the ability to see your child grow up, but the story isn't very expansive like this is. This game is 2 full-fledged parts of the game. Like, literally just the part where you're getting married is kind of like the end of most Story of Seasons games. So seeing that you actually get to continue the story afterwards as your child is something that we wanted to see in some of these other farming games. So I will tell you, granted I haven't played a lot of this game, this is definitely one to check out. Like I said, I'm still working on this game, so I'm not going to talk too much about it. Just a brief overview if you want to check out this for yourself, but I'm going to have to come back to this one and give you guys my full review on it when I finish it, because this game really hit some points for me. So let's move on to the next one. Ah yes, Rune Factory 3. Honestly, this is probably one of my favorites, if not my favorite Rune Factory. This game is quite something. Now, Rune Factory 3 originally came out in 2009 for the Nintendo DS. Now, later down the line in 2023, this game actually got remastered for the Nintendo Switch and goes by the title Rune Factory 3 Special. There isn't really too many differences between both games, but I will say if you're picking up Rune Factory 3 in like today's era, I would kind of suggest picking up Rune Factory 3 Special just because they fixed a lot of technical issues that happened in Rune Factory 3, on top of it just looking a lot cleaner. Like, even look at this trailer, like, it's full blown in color, it's for the Nintendo Switch, and I believe it's now on Steam as well, so I have to just say, if you're gonna play Rune Factory 3 Special, I think this would be a lot better bang for your buck than trying to play this again on your Nintendo DS. Now, let's get into the story a little bit of this game. So in this game, you play as the main protagonist, another young man, but he has the power to actually transform into a golden woolly. Now, throughout Rune Factory, you see these reoccurring monsters in the games. Most of them are kind of revolved around these little woolies. You'll see these cows. They're pretty similar from game to game. They just might have some slight differences, but you are a man being able to transform into a woolly, as you can see right here in these first beginning stages of the game. So similar to the other Rune Factory games, you wake up in a town with no memory of who you are, and you try to adjust to human life. But then you kind of discover that the town is actually divided between humans and monsters. So as a half monster, you're kind of caught in the middle. Over the course of the game, you're going to be doing some farming, fighting, falling in love, you know how it is. But you try to bridge the gap between the two worlds. I gotta say, the creativity level of this game is so cool to me. Like, the fact that you get to transform into a cute little plushy sheep, I think is not only adorable, but I just never seen something like this in any other game. Like, hats off to the Marvelous team, Natsume, when they were together, because the storyboard people, they've been cooking, guys. Like, actually, why are they cooking? Like, who is making these stories? Okay, let me talk a little bit more about it. In this game, transformation plays a huge role in the gameplay and in the story. The protagonist is able to shift into his woolly form, which affects how the villagers treat him and how he interacts with other monsters. The dialogue is a lot snappier, there's a lot more funny parts of the game, and it has a lot more fleshed out town events. Plus, each bachelorette in the game has their own unique story, so it feels a lot more personal than some of the other games. Maybe it's just me, but this is one of the games where I didn't know if I really loved all of the bachelorettes. There are a lot of candidates in this game, and to be honest, granted, I love the fact that they all have their own stories, but it kind of felt like a little bit of an Otome game, you know, your character being like the only eligible male character with tons and tons of females. To me, just, I don't know, felt a little weird, but I don't know. I'm saying that like the other Rune Factory games didn't have the similar vibe. I think it's just because of this remastered version. I'm looking at it like this is a full-on anime type of game. I don't know if anyone really agrees with me on that point, but I don't know. Like, to me, I'm just like, there's a lot of women in this game, and I'm really just the only dude. It's given harem anime, but I guess it's fine, because I guess I'm a half sheep. But I digress. That's really the only thing I can think of that I thought was like a bit odd. But for the most part though, this game is really cool. It really hits a good sweet spot between the narrative elements on top of farming and also being able to do a lot of fighting in your monster form. Definitely a top tier game for me, and I would say to check this one out. But Rune Factory 4, it hits different. We're gonna have to chat about it. Ah yes, this game right here is Rune Factory 4. This game came out in 2012 for the Nintendo 3DS, and then later got remastered as Rune Factory 4 Special for the Nintendo Switch, PS4, Xbox, PC, you name it. Rune Factory 4 Special came out in 2021. And similar to Rune Factory 3 Special, they added some new story elements to it that you can read and play along with, and just fix some glitches and issues. Now, I said we weren't going to be talking about any of the non-mainline games, but they really took a note from their book of Tides of Destiny, because in that game you were able to play as a girl and a guy that were kind of like merged together, which I don't know, that's a whole different story. But in that game you were able to play as a female to some extent, so in this game you actually get to play as a female protagonist, which of course I did. Okay, so let's get into the story of Rune Factory 4. In this game, you can play as a male or female protagonist, your choice, who falls out of an airship and crashes into the town Selphia. I find it funny the way you get amnesia in this game. In the other games, it's kind of like, oh my gosh, I just wound up somewhere and now I have amnesia. In this game, you actually get smacked in the head and you end up getting amnesia before you even fall out of the plane. Like these castle guard people that are trying to take you ends up smacking you so hard you end up forgetting your memories, and then they push you out of the airship. So I just thought that was kind of funny. You crash land right into the middle of the castle in Selphia, and they declare you as royalty. Apparently you have the same name as some prince or princess that used to live there, so they're super excited that you're back. So you are put in charge of basically the entire town. You are able to manage royal orders like the festivals and things like that, on top of having your own little farm, fighting monsters, and unraveling the story of the dragons and the spirits of the game. Now, like I said earlier, the story team, whoever wrote these, knew what they were doing. This game is heavily driven by story. It's kind of divided into, I want to say, like 3 story arcs. The first one kind of involves saving the dragon, Ventswill, I think that's her name, I'm sorry. She's an earth dragon. And the second one is kind of dives deeper into ancient artifacts and things threatening the town. Not doing any spoilers for the arc part 2, but I just gotta say, you gotta prepare yourself. Okay, a lot happens. And then in part 3, it dives even deeper by doing some like last battling type of stuff. It's just basically a lot. Generally speaking, the game is pretty long and there's a lot of lore that goes into the story of the game. Now, in the original Rune Factory 4, there was a lot of issues with events not happening when they were supposed to be happening. Like, they were very random and there was issues and stuff. So Rune Factory 4 Special kind of cleans up a lot of those things. So I would definitely say be very weary of that. And this was actually the first game since the split between the companies that doesn't have the Fantasy Harvest Moon label anymore. So that's just another generalized thing. I say this game is pretty thought out. Like, if you like heavy story games with fighting and mystery, you know, a little bit of romance, I definitely say this one's pretty cool, especially that you get to play as a male and female protagonist, which I liked a lot better. I will say though, I do feel like this game is a bit drawn out. That's just me personally speaking. I think it's just a little longer than it really needs to be. And I'm also going to say I think that the characters in Rune Factory 3 were a little more my favorite. I think they just had a lot more quirky personalities than in this one. Not like there's anything wrong with this one as well, but I will say that some of the characters just had so much charm in this game, and not that you don't see it in here, but not as much as I think you see it in Rune Factory 3. But I will say this really does feel like 3 games in one. The romance system is pretty refined. All of the characters live in town with you. There's like a big crafting system, lots of skills you can do, monster companion systems, cooking contests, you name it. This is definitely a fan favorite, and I'd say this is one you gotta check out. Alright, this right here is Rune Factory 5, the latest Rune Factory game that is out to date, but hopefully by the time you're watching this, we are seeing Rune Factory Guardians of Azuma, but I'm sure it's not that soon. But this game came out in 2021 for the Nintendo Switch. I swear the Rune Factory fans were choking when they saw this after having waited like 10 years for a new game. I'm telling you, the wait was worth it. So, like the other games, you play as a girl or guy who has amnesia, of course, and you join Seed, which I find kind of funny because I'm sure this game is partnered by Xseed, but there is a little group called Seed, S-E-E-D, and it's an organization that protects the town that you are in from all of the rampaging monsters. Since you don't know anything about where you're from or how you even got there, you decide to join the Seed Rangers and patrol the land, take on quests, battle monsters, and build relationships with the people in town. Now, in some of the games, they do touch a little bit about your memories and things like that. So in this game, that is kind of your goal. You're trying to uncover the secrets about your origins and some of the conflict about, you know, like in other games, some conflicts about the dragons and some of the technology that they use. Now, one thing I will say about this game, this was the first Rune Factory game with a fully 3D world, so you can actually move your camera with real time. Now, for the times, I will say I like the fact that they did this. Now, personally, I'm always a fan of the 2D art style, but I think this game actually does it pretty well. I like the 3D models of the characters. Everybody looks pretty awesome, and they do show you their 2D character models while talking to them. So I gotta say, with them looking very accurate to their models and with their 2D animation characters as well, it's a great touch. And in this game, they actually did introduce same-sex marriage, so you can better interact with the villagers as well. But one thing I gotta note is that this game did launch with a lot of technical issues, frame drops, there were some bugs, the loading screens take forever, at least I still have issues with the loading screen, but they did have some patches which smoothed a lot of stuff over. Now, I really do like Rune Factory 5, but in a way it kinda, I don't know, this might be a little controversial, but I just don't think this gives me the same feel as the other Rune Factory games. I do like the story, I do find it interesting. You get to go to these special dungeons and you get to, ride on dragons' backs and you're like uncovering all of this weird stuff that happens in the world, but it doesn't feel like a Rune Factory game to me. I think that's probably just because this is the first 3D world-like game, but I don't know, it's just a couple things that are a little different to me in this game that I, kind of miss from the other games. Overall, though, I don't think it's a bad game, though. I just think it has a different feel than some of the other games. But I think it's one of those things, like, if you played Persona 5 before you played all the other ones, you might notice that you kind of like Persona 5 better. Like, that's kind of how I think I look at this, is that I don't think I really loved Rune Factory 5, but I really liked it. I think it's different than what I was used to with the other Rune Factory games, and I do like it, but it gives me kind of like the newer Pokemon type of games, like everyone's kind of moving to this open world format. But I think, I don't know, not that I can really recommend on ways that they could have done this differently. I just think, I kind of miss some of those things that made the regular Rune Factory games, but I understand, they're changing with the times and things gotta look a little different and a little more modern, but I do think that overall this game is pretty interesting. I think they also lean into like some of the weirdness maybe that you might have seen in like some of the other kind of like Otome stylish games. Like, there's one character in here, and I'm sure people who have played it know that girl, the red hair girl, that I'm like, okay, y'all gotta stop. Like, she is a whole wolf girl. The fact that she's a marriage candidate, but like she looks like a complete, I don't know, child. It's just, you guys already know, it's giving fetishy kind of vibes. Not loving that, but I didn't make the game. I'm just stating what I think, okay? Overall, though, I do think the game is pretty cool. I don't dislike it. You can farm, you can fish, find love, and you can battle monsters. It's your, typical Rune Factory, premise, along with solving these various cases that are happening through the town. Pretty cool concept. It's not like Rune Factory 3, okay. But I think it is pretty cool for what it is. Now, let's kind of dive in and talk about this new game, Guardians of Azuma. While this game hasn't released yet, this game is set to release somewhere around May 30th of 2025. So I'm actually very excited. This game right here, Guardians of Azuma, used to be called Project Dragon. It was released during the Marvelous Showcase, I want to say in 2024, talking a little bit about what this game was going to entail. And if I'm being completely honest, this isn't your traditional Rune Factory game like the other ones. This kind of is a spin-off story, so, I'm sure you guys are like, well, why didn't you talk about the other games? It's because I'm going to wait and talk about all of them at the same time. But this game is kind of working with the other Rune Factory games by giving some of those background things you've learned in the other games more of a full-fledged story. During that Marvelous Showcase, they talked about kind of the direction for why this game is being released, and it's kind of because there is a lot of talk about what's happening in the East and in the West in a lot of these games, but they're not really fully touched on. So this is supposed to kind of clear up some of those things that's happening in the game before you actually play it. So I kind of think of this game almost like a prequel before you actually get into Rune Factory. Now, in the traditional Rune Factory series, you are referred to as kind of like an earth mate, but in this game, you are actually an earth dancer. I mean, okay. Now, I haven't watched all of the trailers talking about this game because I really don't want to spoil it for myself. I don't want to know who the characters are. I don't want to know any of that. You know, keep it a secret. Don't write them in the comments. I don't want to know. But the premise of this game is that you're an earth dancer and you must journey to the eastern land of Azuma. So you're going to battle this kind of blight that is happening, and you're going to try to restore the land and its people to the former glory by awakening these gods, rebuilding the village, and exploring it, as this game is completely open world. This game has a very Japanese culture-like feel to it, which I find very beautiful. It really reminds me of that game Tales of Seikyu. I believe that's coming out soon as well. And even when I had checked out the trailers of this game, it looks very similar to Tales of Seikyu. Check that out. I made a little short on it if you want to see that. But same feel for it. Like, it has a lot of these Japanese culture aspects to the game. So in the traditional Rune Factory games, like I said, you're referred to as an earthmate. So earthmates are people with like special connections to the earth. But this game gives that word almost a little more meaning. As an earth dancer, you're able to use the power of dance and sacred treasures and weapons to kind of purify this land. Now guys, I'm gonna be completely honest. When I had first watched this trailer back, like way back whenever, I don't know, they were like first talking about this, the idea of being able to be an earth dancer just seemed a little odd to me. Not that I had a problem with it, but I really was trying to figure out what they meant about using the power of dance. Like, are we doing some kind of spin-off like dance remix of the game? But like, since seeing the gameplay a little more, I don't think that's what they mean. Like, if I have to come in here and start doing like hip hop moves, I'm out. Like, the way I'm gonna dog on the game, guys, you have no idea. But no, seriously, I do think this game looks pretty awesome. There is like a new farming system. There's a lot of mystical elements you can do for like farming plots. They have a lot of combat styles that are actually influenced by Eastern weaponry. Oh, I can't say that word. And martial arts. This game is supposed to be a lot more narratively rich, so it's going to be based on a lot of folklore. There's even a possibility of some transformations and stuff you can do in here. It just seems like a very well thought out game. Now, strategically thinking, I can kind of understand why Rune Factory 6 hasn't been released yet and this game was released first, and it's because Rune Factory 6 and Guardians of Azuma are supposed to be kind of like one in the same in terms of the storyline. I think this game is supposed to focus heavily on the East, whereas Rune Factory 6 is supposed to give us some ideas of what is happening in the West. So when you think of it like that, I kind of understand that they might want to focus on a more of a spin-off story first before we're talking about Rune Factory 6. So I feel like that's pretty understandable why we haven't seen anything going on about Rune Factory 6 yet, but I feel like in another couple years we're gonna see what's happening with that. I think it's good that this is getting dropped first, so then that way we can kind of get an understanding of what Rune Factory 6 might look like and the realm of how it might function as an open world game, being that Rune Factory 5 had similar elements. But this, to me, Guardians of Azuma feels a lot more fleshed out. I love seeing like these worldly elements. It looks like you're in different seasons. It looks like there's lots of bachelors and bachelorettes, and the woolies are like what, turning into dragons and stuff. It's just like a lot happening. I think it's also interesting to see a game company that kind of spins off into different directions, like with these more yokai influenced monsters as opposed to, you know, some of the things we see in the traditional Rune Factory series. Like, I just think, like, no offense to Story of Seasons, but like, I don't know, can they do it like Rune Factory? Like, Rune Factory is known for these awesome creative story elements from what you guys have just seen. You know, they are really heavily impacted by story and driven with that. So I think it's really cool to see that, versus I would like to see something like this in the traditional Harvest Moon / Story of Seasons era, but we just haven't gotten that yet. I think this is a great game if you really want to kind of delve into more story heavy impacted games, because this game series really does that. As far as predictions go, I think this game is going to be fully fleshed out. I think it's going to be a good game. I'm a little worried about the price tag. As of right now, I could see myself spending $60 on it, but I've recently checked the Nintendo Switch 2 page, and I saw that this game's probably going to be $70 at minimum before tax for the Nintendo Switch 2. So I don't know if you've already put in your pre-order yet, but look out for that. I personally don't think I'm going to be buying this for Switch 2. Probably will be buying it for my regular Switch, as I don't have the money to be buying $70 games. So I mean, if anybody wants to, join the Patreon, I probably would suggest all of you to just be, cautious about that. I just don't know yet if I could see myself spending over $70 for Rune Factory, a new Rune Factory like game. I really would like to kind of test it out, see it first before I really think about spending that heavy price increase. But I mean, for the people who are buying this on Steam, hopefully we can see some discounts, although being that the game's made by Marvelous / Xseed, I'm not sure what that's going to look like. And just really quickly before we go here, I want to say that my predictions for Rune Factory 6 are that I hope that they kind of step into a different direction as opposed to what we're seeing for Guardians of Azuma. I'm hoping that instead of maybe a traditional element, we get something a little more modern, possibly. I'm not sure, but I feel like with the direction they're going to, we're going to get two completely different storylines, and they even talked about it a little bit in this showcase, which was the 2023 showcase I misspoke earlier. But I feel like, being that this game is focusing on the East, I feel like the Western version in this Rune Factory 6 game is going to be very, very interesting. Hopefully a completely different storyline with bringing back some of those traditional elements of the mainline Rune Factory games. So I'm really hoping they don't steer off too much. I think that would be, kind of painful to other fans if they go a little bit too off of subject, being that we already have Guardians of Azuma. So if you want to be an Earth dancer, go over there. But I want to go back to being an Earth mate at some point. I don't know if any other people agree, but that's really all I have talking about that. I don't know, I have a lot of thoughts on it, but this is your opportunity to leave a comment down below your predictions, because I want to know. And those are my thoughts on Guardians of Azuma along with the Rune Factory games. Personally speaking, I am super excited for Guardians of Azuma, but I hope Rune Factory 6 will be around the corner. I know Guardians of Azuma is kind of like its own thing, but where is Rune Factory 6, y'all? Like, come on. Anyways, I'm super excited. I'm hoping in the future we'll even be able to talk about what's going on with the Nintendo Switch 2. Anyways, I love to see you guys in my next video. Hit that like and subscribe button if you like this video today, and I'll see you in my next one. Follow for more game reviews. Bye!